There are moments when the universe blinks, when the threads of destiny tremble between what is and what could have been. In one such breath of eternity, a single Saiyan's fate shifted not toward the wrathful god of Universe 7, but toward the balance-seeking hand of Universe 6. And from that divergence, the cosmos itself would remember a new legend, the tale of Broly, the wandering storm who found peace among strangers and strength beyond rage. Before we descend into this altered current of time, where stars burn with unfamiliar colors and gods whisper in silence, remember to join this journey so our timelines may never fade into dust. In the silent vacuum beyond time, a fragment of light drifted, faint, trembling, and almost forgotten. It was not a star, nor a fragment of one, but a living ember. A Saiyan child cast away from his world, asleep within the cold embrace of eternity. His name, though never spoken in the void, carried a vibration that the universe itself remembered. Broly. There was no sound in the place where he floated, only memory. The memory of a father's command, the memory of chains, the memory of fear so vast it burned brighter than any sun. He had screamed once, and the echo of that scream had torn through galaxies like lightning. Yet in this universe, not his own, that scream was never heard. Until she found him. Vados, the angel of Universe 6, wandered through the fabric of existence as one might stroll through a garden. She was searching, though angels rarely admitted such things, for something that could awaken her universe's sleeping spirit. Her staff hummed as she crossed a field of stardust and broken comets, and there, drifting in a cocoon of green ki, was the sleeping storm. She hovered above him, eyes soft with the light of countless aeons. "How curious," she whispered, her voice a melody lost to mortal tongues. "A Saiyan, but not of this place." She could have left him, should have, perhaps, but angels are not without feeling. She touched the cocoon with one slender hand, and the void trembled. Inside, the boy stirred. A growl, a heartbeat, a pulse of green light that rippled through the cosmos like thunder. "Peace, little one," she said gently, her staff glowing with divine resonance. "You have wandered far from your storm." When Broly awoke, he did not understand the world that awaited him. The stars were different, the air was lighter. His father was gone, his chains gone. Only silence remained. Vados watched as the young Saiyan stumbled through the ruins of an asteroid field, his power leaking from him like fire from a cracked forge. Every step trembled with confusion, every breath shook with pain. He roared, not in fury, but in grief, and the roar cracked a moon in half. Champa appeared soon after, drawn by the disturbance. His great purple form materialized beside Vados with an indignant snarl. "Who dares disrupt my rest this time?" His golden eyes widened when they fell upon the boy. "A Saiyan?" "Not one of ours," Vados replied. "He drifts from another branch of reality, lost between fates." Champa scoffed. "Another Saiyan? Huh! Beerus collects headaches. I collect disasters." He turned away, but Vados' eyes glimmered with thought. "This one could change everything." "What?" "He was made by rage, but beneath it I sense something older. Something pure." Broly fell to his knees, trembling as if the universe pressed upon his back. He could not remember his father's face, nor the planet that birthed him. All he knew was the ache, the endless ache of being alive. When Vados knelt beside him, he did not flinch. Her hand touched his shoulder, and in that instant, he felt warmth. Not battle, not fear, just warmth. For the first time, Broly did not strike. She smiled faintly. "Welcome to Universe 6, young one.
You have suffered long enough." Days passed, then weeks. Broly lived in the barren hills of Sadala, not the ancient one that fell, but the new home the Saiyans of Universe 6 had built in peace. Their ways were different. They fought not for conquest, but for challenge, pride, and growth. They laughed after battle. They rested without chains. And yet, when they saw him, they stepped aside. Something about his presence, the trembling air, the quiet hum of power that never slept, reminded them of the gods they feared. He trained alone beneath the twin suns, guided only by memory and silence. His ki flared wild and green, rippling through valleys and mountains, but beneath his fury, there was gentleness, like a beast learning not to fear its own roar. One night, as he sat beside a small fire, he whispered into the wind, "Who am I now?" The stars did not answer, but somewhere, deep within his chest, a calm voice whispered back, "You are not the weapon they made you to be."
Vados watched from afar, her staff glowing faintly. She saw the storm softening, the wounds closing. She saw not the monster whispered about in other timelines, but a boy rebuilding his soul. Still, she knew the truth of all things born from battle. Peace never lasts forever. For across the void, in Universe 7, Beerus stirred from his slumber. A ripple of divine intuition brushed his senses, and his ear twitched. "Vados," he murmured in his sleep, his voice a low growl. "What have you done this time?" The universe held its breath, and Broly, unaware of the cosmic eyes turning toward him, lifted his gaze to the stars, a lost warrior reborn beneath foreign suns. His aura flickered green, but for the first time, it did not burn. It shimmered, like a candle refusing to die. The night sky watched him quietly, as if a prophecy had just been rewritten. The days on planet Sadala moved gently, as if the world itself hesitated to disturb him. Wind rolled through the canyons like whispers of forgotten gods, and Broly walked among them, a shadow of a past life, a heartbeat too strong for peace to hold. He would stand at the edge of the cliffs for hours, watching the twin suns bleed gold and crimson across the horizon. The heat of their light did not burn him. It reminded him of something buried deep, the warmth of his mother's embrace, long before exile, before fear turned his life into a cage. That memory flickered faintly, like an ember surviving in a storm. Every movement of his body carried weight, the kind that bent air and cracked stone. When he breathed, the world responded, dust trembling, leaves scattering, the air warping in a pulse of invisible energy. The younger Saiyans who trained nearby would sometimes stop to stare at awe, awestruck by the calm in his fury. Among them was Kaba. The boy, ever curious and respectful, was the first to approach. "You train like someone who's fighting ghosts," he said one afternoon, his tone cautious but sincere. Broly glanced at him, his expression unreadable, eyes like calm oceans hiding lightning beneath. "Maybe I am." Kaba nodded, unsure if he understood. "We all do sometimes. But here, you don't have to fight alone." The words fell between them like seeds. Broly said nothing, but his gaze softened for a moment. Kaba left soon after, smiling faintly, as if he had just spoken to a mountain that might one day smile back. Yet peace was a fragile thing, and destiny, no matter how distant, has a way of finding its own reflection. Caulifla and Kale had been testing themselves against each other, sparks of golden energy illuminating the night. Their rivalry was fierce, but beneath it lay sisterhood, a bond of spirit and survival. When Broly passed by, Caulifla grinned like a predator spotting a worthy challenge. "Hey, big guy," she shouted, her aura blazing gold. "You look strong enough to break mountains. Want to test that?" Broly didn't answer at first. He didn't enjoy fighting. It reminded him of cages, of roars he couldn't control. But something in Caulifla's fire, Her wild joy, her freedom, stirred him. She wasn't fighting to destroy, she was fighting to live. He nodded once. The air around them thickened, the ground cracked. When their fists met, the shock wave rolled across the horizon like thunder. Caulifla laughed, exhilarated, while Broly's eyes glowed faintly green, the air bending around him. She was fast, reckless, cunning, but he moved like nature itself, each strike precise, flowing, unstoppable. Vados appeared in the distance, watching quietly as space rippled. "She's learning control," she murmured. "He fights not to win, but to balance himself." The battle ended not in victory, but in understanding. Caulifla's hair flickered, her energy drained, yet her grin remained unbroken. "Damn," she panted. "You're like a walking storm, but I like that." Broly's breathing steadied. He looked at her, this fierce, unyielding woman, and said softly, "You fight without hate." "Yeah," she smirked. "Tried some time." From that night, something shifted. The Saiyans of Universe 6 began to see him not as an outsider, but as one of their own, the quiet giant who trained under the stars and never boasted of his strength. And Kale, shy and gentle, began to linger nearby during his training, drawn by something she couldn't name. She felt his presence in her bones, the echo of power, yes, but also the quiet ache of someone who knew what it meant to be feared for their own nature. When she lost control of her ki, Broly was the one who calmed her, his hand steady on her shoulder, his voice a deep whisper. "It's not your rage, it's your heart, too big for its cage." Kale looked at him then, really looked, and for the first time, she saw not a beast, but a soul. Their connection was wordless, two storms recognizing each other in silence. But even as harmony grew, the gods were watching. Vados could feel the pull of cosmic threads tightening. Broly's very presence had begun to bend probability, to alter what should and should not be. And in the far reaches of the divine plane, Champa was beginning to see him not as a foundling, but as a weapon. For gods of destruction understand power in only two ways: to command it or to fear it. Vados turned her gaze skyward, her expression unreadable. "You may have found peace," she whispered to the wind, "but peace is never the end of a Saiyan's story." That night, as storms rolled across the Sadala plains, Broly dreamed again. He stood in a field of green light, his body weightless. A shadow moved before him, tall, feline, eyes of gold. Beerus. The god's voice was distant, distorted but clear. "You don't belong here," it said. "You are mine." Broly awoke with a gasp, the air trembling. His aura flickered wild for an instant before calming. But far beyond the stars, two universes stirred as one, their fates entwined once more. The storm had found peace, but peace, like all fragile things, was only the beginning. The dawn rose over Sadala like molten gold spilling across steel. The twin suns ignited the mountains, and the wind carried the scent of dust in ki, living, humming, eternal. Broly awoke before the others, his body already alive with the pulse of power, each breath vibrating faintly through the air. He had begun to train not to survive, but to understand. Vados watched from afar, her staff glowing softly as she studied him. "She grows quickly," she murmured. "Not in strength alone, but in spirit. His aura no longer screams, it sings." Broly, oblivious to the angel's words, stood atop the cliff edge, his body calm, but his mind restless. He could feel something stirring within him, a pressure that was neither rage nor fear. It was longing, for belonging, for purpose. That morning,
Kaba and Caulifla arrived, carrying the spark of mischief that seemed to follow them everywhere. Caulifla shouted before even reaching him. "Oi, big guy, don't tell me you're out here brooding again. Come train with us before you turn into a rock." Broly blinked at her, confused, perhaps, or amused in his quiet way. "Training again?" Caulifla laughed. "Of course! You think strength means sitting still? Come on, unless you're scared Kale might outshine you today." Kale, standing behind her, flushed red. "See Caulifla, please." But Broly's lips twitched, the faintest hint of a smile. He nodded once, and the trio set off toward the open plains where the air shimmered with untamed ki. Their training began as laughter and ended in thunder. Broly's raw energy clashed with Caulifla's daring technique, while Kaba's precision carved balance between them. Kale watched, trembling, trying to contain the wildness within her chest. Every punch Broly threw seemed to call to something deep in her, something ancient and unrestrained. When her control broke, it was not out of anger, but resonance. Her aura exploded in green flame, her hair flaring as power devoured the air. The ground shattered beneath her feet.
Caulifla shouted, "Kale, control it!" But Broly stepped forward. No fear, no hesitation. He knew that look. He had lived inside that storm all his life. He placed his hand gently against her arm. "You're not broken," he said, his voice low, steady. "You're overflowing." The words, soft as they were, cut through the chaos like a blade of light. Kale's breathing slowed, her eyes shimmered, and the raging ki around her flickered, then softened, folding back into her body like a tide returning to shore. Silence followed. Then the faintest sound of wind moving through the grass. Caulifla grinned. "Well, damn, I've been yelling at her for months, and all she needed was a lullaby from Mr. Quiet here." Kale laughed weakly, her tears glistening in the sunlight. I don't know how he did it." Broly looked away, the memory of his own father flashing like lightning across his mind. "Because I was once like you." Vados appeared beside them, her smile serene yet knowing. "You are teaching one another," she said softly. "Perhaps that is what the universes have forgotten, that strength is not found in solitude, but in harmony." The days that followed became legend among the Saiyans of Universe 6. Caulifla, Kaba, Kale, and Broly, 4 warriors of different tempers, bound by the same flame. They trained until the sky itself seemed to pulse with their rhythm. Together they forged a new kind of power, not born of rivalry, but of resonance. In time, Broly's green aura grew calmer, denser, purer. When he fought, his eyes no longer glowed with madness, but with intent, clear, focused, alive. Yet with every stride toward peace, destiny sharpened its edge. During a training session one dusk, a tremor rolled through the sky. The horizon darkened, the air thickened. A shadow descended, massive, feline, wrapped in the scent of destruction. Champa. He landed with a rumble, his voice booming through the valley. "So this is the Saiyan everyone's been whispering about. Impressive, you've got a presence that shakes even gods." Broly said nothing. Caulifla stepped forward, defiant. "What do you want, Lord Champa?"
The god smirked. "What I always want. Power. I've heard whispers from my dear twin that Universe 7 trembles because of a beast they once exiled. Funny thing is, it seems I've found that beast." Vados lowered her gaze. "He is not your weapon, my lord." Champa's grin faded slightly. Everything powerful in this universe serves its balance, including him. The silence that followed was heavy. Broly met the god's gaze, his voice low but clear. "I don't want to destroy. Not anymore." Champa chuckled darkly. "That's not for you to decide, Saiyan. It's the universe's nature. Destruction creates balance. You'll learn that soon enough." And just like that, the seeds of destiny shifted again. As Champa vanished into a blur of divine smoke, Broly felt the cold fingers of fate clutch at him once more. His peace, his fragile human peace, trembled. Caulifla took his hand. "You don't have to listen to him." He looked at her, truly looked, and saw in her reflection the truth he feared. "I might not have a choice. Because if I lose control, I'll destroy more than just myself." The sun sank beneath the horizon, bleeding red light across the plains. Caulifla stood tall, her aura flickering gold. "Then we make sure that never happens." And as darkness fell over Sadala, the four of them stood together, their energies interwoven, fragile, defiant, luminous. The storm had found kinship, but the gods had begun to stir.
Champa had not forgotten the storm he had claimed. While Broly built bonds among mortals, the god of destruction plotted among divinity. He sat in his throne of cosmic jade, a goblet of starlight in his paw, his yellow eyes gleaming. "Vados," he said, his tone deceptively casual, "our universe has been lagging behind. Beerus boasts about his warriors, that Saiyan, Goku, even the mortal who rivals gods. Tell me, why should Universe 7 have all the glory?" Vados tilted her head, calm as ever. "Are you suggesting a tournament, my lord?" Champa smirked. "Perhaps, but this time I'll have my own monster." Vados's eyes flickered with unease. "He is not your monster. He is a being of potential." "Potential means nothing unless unleashed." And with that, the seed was planted, a divine scheme veiled beneath pride. When the announcement came, the Saiyans of Universe 6 gathered upon the open plains. Champa appeared before them in a burst of purple flame, his voice echoing like thunder. "Warriors of Sadala, your universe requires you once again. A tournament, one that will determine whose mortals reign supreme, and this time you will win." The crowd erupted in cheers, but Broly stood apart, unmoved. He'd heard whispers of these cosmic games, mortals pitted against God's vanity. It reeked of old pain. Vados approached him quietly. She said, "I sense your reluctance." "I've fought enough battles that meant nothing," Broly replied. His gaze was distant, his voice a low rumble. "Why must we always destroy to prove our worth?" "Because," she said, her tone neither gentle nor cruel, "that gods have not yet learned what mortals have, that strength born of compassion is not weakness, but divinity misunderstood." Broly looked at her, a faint sorrow in his eyes. "Then let them misunderstand me." But destiny rarely honors the wishes of the gentle. As the tournament drew near, Broly trained harder than ever, not out of hunger for victory, but to master himself. He fought alongside Caulifla and Kaba, guided Kale through her storms, and faced his own reflection in every battle. Yet beneath his calm, something ancient pulsed. The primal Saiyan instinct to survive through power. That instinct would soon awaken again. When the first match began, the multiversal stage burned brighter than any star. Mortals, gods, and angels alike gathered to witness. Champa's grin split wide as he leaned back, claws tapping against his throne. "Show them, Broly! Show them what Universe 6 has become!" Broly stepped forward, silent, towering, eyes calm as still water. Across from him stood an unfamiliar fighter from another realm, a god's apprentice cloaked in blue ki. The match began with a flicker, and then exploded into chaos.
Each blow shattered air, each movement bent light. The crowd gasped as Broly matched divine technique with raw instinct, the earth beneath him fracturing like glass. His calm held until he saw the apprentice strike Kale. Something inside him broke. The sound that escaped his chest was not a roar. It was the cry of a soul split in two, rage and compassion colliding like colliding stars. His aura ignited emerald once more, brighter, denser, alive with fury and grief combined. The heavens shook, the arena cracked. Kale reached out through the dust. "Broly, please!" But her voice was drowned in the sound of reality unraveling. His energy tore through dimensions, flickering between wrath and transcendence. Vados' eyes widened. This isn't the same power. It's evolved. It's guided. And in that instant, something miraculous occurred. The green of his aura bled into white, a shimmering, radiant light that hummed like angelic resonance. His movements slowed, deliberate, every strike balanced between rage and mercy. Champa leapt to his feet. "What is that?" Vados whispered, awed. "The Wrathful Ascendant, the perfect equilibrium of emotion and divinity." The arena fell silent, time itself hesitating to move. Broly's eyes burned like emerald stars as he stood above his fallen opponent. Not victorious, not savage, but aware. He had touched something no mortal was ever meant to touch, peace within fury. And far away, across the divine divide, Beerus felt it. His eyes snapped open. "That energy," he muttered, "it shouldn't exist." In that moment, two universes trembled, not from war, but from realization. Broly had surpassed the boundary that even gods feared to approach. But all power, divine or mortal, demands its consequence. There are moments in the flow of time when the universe itself seems to hesitate, when even gods hold their breath, watching the line between mortal and divine blur. Broly's awakening was one such moment.
The Wrathful Ascendant form shimmered with a light that defied comprehension. Neither rage nor serenity ruled him now. Both had found equilibrium within his soul. His ki no longer burned wildly. It sang, resonating like the heartbeat of existence itself. To look upon him was to glimpse the harmony between chaos and creation. When the battle ended, the arena was silent. Even the gods of destruction, those eternal arbiters of endings, found no words. Vados stood still, eyes wide with a rare hint of awe. She had trained mortals and gods alike, but never had she witnessed a being understand power as this one did. And Broly stood alone in the center of the ruined stage, his chest rising and falling with quiet rhythm. The green flame around him flickered, then folded inward, dissolving into stillness. His mind, once haunted by screams and orders, now carried only a single truth, that his power was not a curse, but a prayer. In that silence, something ancient stirred. The air shimmered with an unseen pulse, and the divine attendants turned their gaze skyward. Beyond the veil of the arena, beyond even the reach of angels, a presence vast and unfathomable observed. The Grand Priest. His voice rippled across realities, calm and echoing, neither loud nor soft, but absolute. A mortal who treads the path of equilibrium. Remarkable. Zeno tilted his head, his childlike face unreadable. He shines, like stars when they cry. The Grand Priest nodded once. Perhaps a glimpse of what mortals may one day become. The multiverse trembled with that possibility. Back in Universe 6, Broly sat upon a quiet hill overlooking the twilight plains of Sadala. The suns were sinking, their colors bleeding into the horizon like ink into silk. Around him, the others rested. Kale nearby, silent but peaceful. Caulifla sprawled across a rock, muttering about how unfairly strong he'd become. And Kaba, smiling softly, as if witnessing the first page of a legend. Vados appeared, her staff gently humming with celestial light. "Do you understand what you've become?" she asked, her voice a whisper of cosmic wind. Broly looked at his hands, steady now, free of tremor. "No," he said. "I only understand what I am not anymore." "And what is that?" He gazed at the sky. "A weapon."
Vados smiled faintly. Then perhaps you are closer to godhood than the gods themselves.
But even as she spoke, the universe began to ripple. A hum, subtle then growing, spread across the heavens. Portals of light shimmered in the void, as if reality itself were responding to the imbalance his transformation had created. Through them came whispers, echoes from countless worlds, fragments of voices calling his name. Broly, the mortal who bent destruction into mercy, the storm who became calm. And with those whispers came the visions, flashes of other timelines, other versions of himself, the beast of Universe 7, rampaging under Paragus' chains, the lonely warrior exiled to Vampa's wastelands, the hollow-eyed son who never knew kindness. Each vision shimmered like a reflection in broken glass. He reached out instinctively, and the air around him cracked. "Careful," Vados warned softly. "You are touching the folds of existence itself." He turned to her, voice trembling not with fear, but with revelation. "So many versions, all suffering, all screaming for release." Vados's gaze softened. "Every universe carries its echoes. You have begun to hear them." He closed his eyes, breathing slowly, and for a moment, a heartbeat of silence stretched across infinity, all those echoes stilled. From that stillness, he whispered, "Then let me bring them peace." And the heavens answered. Energy gathered around him, not violent, not divine, but pure resonance. His aura unfolded like wings of emerald and gold, rippling outward in soft waves that touched the boundaries of creation. Worlds flickered in his vision, planets healing, wars pausing, hearts quieting. The vibration of his ki reached even the Kaioshan realms, where deities paused, sensing something sacred awaken in the mortal plane. But with every surge of light comes the shadow that resists it. Across the twin cosmos, Beerus rose from meditation, his eyes burning sharp. "So, Champa's pet has become a god, has he?" Whis inclined his head slightly. "Not a god, my lord. Something parallel, balanced." Beerus's claws flexed. "Balance threatens destruction, and destruction is mine alone."
His aura flared violet, shaking the temple walls. If he's found harmony, then it's time to remind the universes what imbalance feels like. We sighed, though his eyes gleamed with curiosity. "You always did mistake enlightenment for rebellion, Lord Beerus." The cat god grinned, fangs flashing. "Then let's see how a mortal god fares against a real one." And so, the storm began to move once more. Back on Sadala, Broly felt the shift, a distant vibration, deep and resonant. His expression hardened, not in fear, but in understanding. The peace he had found would soon be tested by the very god who once cast him aside. Kale's hand found his. "Is something wrong?" He looked toward the sky, where stars began to quiver. "No," he said. "Something is coming right." The horizon split with violet light. Beerus had arrived. The air was different now, heavy, trembling, sacred. Even the twin sons of Sadala dimmed beneath the pressure that arrived with him. Beerus, god of destruction, twin to Champa, embodiment of divine fury, descended not as a visitor, but as judgment incarnate. His eyes gleamed like dying stars. His presence bent the fabric of reality around him. Vados appeared beside Broly, serene but wary. "He comes not for vengeance, but for balance. Be careful, my student. Gods do not always understand peace." Beerus's voice cracked the horizon like thunder. "You've made quite the mess, Saiyan. I felt your energy from across the void. Mortals playing with divine equilibrium, that's my territory." Broly stood unflinching, his expression calm. "I didn't come here to challenge you." The god tilted his head.
Then why do you breathe power fit to erase galaxies? Because I learned to stop running from it. The words were quiet, but the meaning struck deep. Even Beerus paused, a faint flicker of intrigue crossing his face. The silence stretched long and tense, broken only by the hum of divine ki weaving through the air. Vados stepped back. Perhaps this encounter is necessary, to see if creation and destruction can coexist without annihilation.
And then, without warning, Beerus moved. The world erupted in violet flame. His first strike tore the sky in half, the second shattered mountains, the third never landed because Broly caught it with his bare hand. The shock waves sent rings of light spiraling across the atmosphere, oceans below quaking under the impact. Broly's aura flared emerald and gold, his eyes glowing with tranquil fury. "I don't want to fight," he said, holding Beerus's fist in his grip. "Then stop resisting!" Beerus vanished in a flash, reappearing behind him, palms burning with Hakai energy. Broly twisted, the motion fluid and impossibly fast, deflecting the blast with a surge of balanced ki. The explosion unfolded like a blooming flower of light, consuming the sky. For a long moment, it seemed as if the universe itself would unravel. But Broly did not lose control. He listened. Each of Beerus's attacks was not an act of malice, it was truth, raw and undiluted, destruction without cruelty, power without hate. Broly could feel the rhythm within it, the same pulse that existed in his own heart. It was not opposite to his peace, it was the missing half of it. Their battle became a dialogue. Every blow was a question, every counter an answer. Beerus struck with divine fire, Broly met him with mortal will. They shattered mountains, turned oceans to mist, and painted the heavens with auroras of violet and green. Yet beneath the devastation was something holy, two forces recognizing each other. At one point, between the blinding collisions of energy, Beerus spoke. "You understand, don't you? Destruction is not hate, it's necessity." Broly's voice came through the chaos, steady, resolute. "And creation is not mercy, it's choice." For the first time, Beerus smiled, a thin, genuine curve of respect. "Then let's see whose truth endures."
Their final clash lit the cosmos. Violet met Emerald in a sphere of pure energy, expanding outward until the very fabric of time groaned under the weight of it. Vados raised her staff, forming a barrier of divine light to shield Sadala's people from annihilation. Even Champa, watching from afar, felt the tremor ripple through his bones. And then, silence. When the light faded, the two figures stood amidst a wasteland of glass and starlight. Beerus's arm trembled slightly, a faint smile on his lips. Broly stood before him, aura flickering gently like a dying flame. Neither had won, neither had lost. Beerus exhaled slowly, the glow of destruction dimming around him. "You could have killed me," he said, "but you didn't." Broly's eyes softened. "If I destroyed you, what would remain of me?" The god stared at him for a long time, then laughed, quietly, genuinely. "Maybe the universes need more mortals like you." He turned to leave, his voice echoing across the winds. "But make no mistake, you've changed the order of things. The others will feel it soon." And with that, the destroyer vanished, leaving behind a world half ruined, half reborn. Broly stood amidst the quiet wreckage. Kale and Caulifla ran to him, their eyes wide with awe and fear. Kaba fell to his knees, overwhelmed by the sight of gods and mortals standing as equals. Vados approached last, her staff glowing faintly in the aftermath. She said, "You have done what no mortal has ever done. You have taught a god humility." Broly looked at the horizon, where fragments of shattered light drifted like falling petals. He said, "I only learned to stop fearing what I am." "Then perhaps," Vados said, her smile faint and knowing, "you've become something greater than power. You've become balance itself." In the days that followed, Sadala healed. Fields regrew, oceans cleared, and life returned to its rhythm. Yet something invisible had changed. The Saiyans no longer saw strength as dominance, but as harmony, the unity between power and restraint. Broly trained quietly, often beside Kale and Kaba, guiding them not through words but through presence. Caulifla would tease him still, calling him the calmest beast in the galaxy, and every time he would almost smile. At night, he would sit beneath the twin moons, the wind whispering softly through the plains. He would close his eyes, hearing the echoes of every version of himself across creation, and finally, they were silent, at peace. Sometimes Vados would join him, silent and thoughtful. "Do you think the gods will ever understand what you've shown them?" she asked once.
Broly looked to the stars. They don't need to. The universe already does. And above them, the constellations shimmered like ancient watchers, whispering of a Saiyan who had transcended his rage, who had bridged mortal and divine. The story of Broly of Universe 6 would become a legend whispered through generations, the tale of a lost warrior who found peace, not through conquest, but through compassion. And as the stars burned quietly, as if remembering his will, the cosmos itself seemed to sigh, content, balanced, alive.